Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the L Forum Leadership Speak series. Today, I have the privilege and honor of welcoming a very young leader, Anup Bhujle, President of Empower Professionals. Hello, Anup. Welcome to the show.
Hey Ringo, thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Anup. Thank you so much. And your name is very apt for the topic that you've chosen, which is about empowerment. And you are the Empower Professional. So,
Yeah.
would love to hear your story, and I'm sure the audience would also love to hear about your journey so far. So, would love to hear your journey as a leader and the progress so far.
I've heard that before. People really like our name, and I think it's definitely a name that stands out. Before I joined Empower Professionals, I was actually a technical product manager working at a startup, and so I had a technology background. I understood technology at a deeper level, and that. When I came and joined Empower, I took a lot of those learnings with me, and that's what helped us, definitely rebuild our team from the ground up and implement a lot of processes and kind of grow our organization from the ground up. And so, that was in 2016 that I joined Empower, and ever since then, we've just been growing, and things have been pretty good.
Excellent. So how does it feel? I know it's a family business. So how did it feel for you to move from a professional organization into a family business? Was there a big difference or a big cultural shift for you?
Yeah, well, there's two things. First, I was going from a product environment into a services space, so that there was that big shift, and then definitely going into a family environment. I think management styles were a little bit different, so there was, and you have to kind of juggle that dynamic of family versus being professional, and yeah, it was challenging, but it's been very rewarding because I get to see my parents from a different light, that and work with them closely, and a lot of people don't get that opportunity, and so it's been a blessing in that way.
Excellent. And I think that kind of helps us segue into the next question that I had for you, is you worked in a professional organization and in a product company, and then you moved into a family business and in a services business.
Yeah.
So how does empowerment work in that scenario? And what is your definition of empowerment based on your experiences?
I think it's making everyone feel like they have an impact, that they can have an impact, and also that they have decision-making authority, whether it's, within their own function or within their team or within the greater organization. And so, feeling like you have the ability to control your destiny and make a difference is what empowerment really boils down to.
That's your definition of empowerment,
Yeah.
So how have you seen that blossom in an organization like yourselves, where typical entrepreneurial setups are the ownership organizations need to have more control and versus.
Yeah.
So what has been your experience with that? How have you, found a difference, or have you taken a very different approach to the whole concept of empowerment?
Well, I think, given that I came into an already existing organization, and yeah, we did rebuild things from the ground up, but I had a mindset of working together with my team, and I saw at my previous company, as we grew, what worked and what didn't, and one of the big things was having communication at all levels, keeping an open dialogue, and learning from the people around you. A lot of times someone at a higher level is not going to really understand the issues at the ground level unless they're communicating effectively and communicating often. And so one of the things we've always done is have an open dialogue, and that's really helped us a lot.
So I would love to hear some anecdotal examples of the benefits that you have harvested from empowering your teams and your leaders. So I'd love to hear that based on your experience at Empower.
I need to think about this one. I mean, I don't think there's anything, I'm trying to think what specific comes to mind, but what I would say is, one of the things that we've learned along the way is that, you know, so our team, you know, we had started it with only 2 or 3 people, and now, you know, we've blossomed and grown into a team of 85, and we added another 5 to 10 people in the last couple weeks. But one of the things we learned is to promote within, and that's what makes a really strong organization. You know, I've seen a lot of companies that, as they're growing, they try to bring in talent from outside, and you know, it kind of clashes with the culture, and usually and can create issues. But so with us, it's always been, you know, if you look at my leadership team, they've been with us from day one, you know, and so we have.
So when you say day one, is it from your time or
from my day one? Yeah.
Okay.
So you know, from when I joined to when we built the organization, you know, when we built our built our new office, we have had very little attrition because that's what we do. You know, we try to empower, we try to promote from within, and we try to really invest in our team.
Because the business that you are in, it's all about relationships and services, and anything that goes wrong, you know, can impact the entire relationship and the revenue of the organization.
Yeah.
So sometimes one would assume that there can never be too much control. You know, you want to have as many controls and checks and balances so that you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
So in that kind of scenario, Anup, how have you managed to balance the control and ensuring the team doesn't feel, you know, they feel that they're empowered and they have the freedom to do what they choose to do? How do you build that balance?
You know, that's a great point, and something if you didn't bring up, I would have brought up is, you know, one of the challenges with empowerment when you're in a people space, working with people, is, you know, how to balance having your own framework and overall company guidelines for what success looks like, and then giving individuals room to kind of create their own decisions and you know, make their own impact in that space. And so I guess what we do is this is a tough one. I mean, that's the problem. That's the challenge. I don't know if we've been able to, you know, really, you know, it's a work in progress, I would say.
Yeah, and I think, and the reason I ask you is, you know, services business is all about people, right? Every day they say your assets walk in, your assets walk out, right?
Yeah.
So that's really the services business. So in that, you need to empower because they're professionals and they know what they're doing. Yeah. But at the same time, there's too much at risk when, you know, you under empower, and which I will come to. My next question would be, do you see challenges? You know, if you over empower, do you see challenges with that? You know, what are the risks that you have when you have, you know, empower too much?
I think that no matter how many guidelines you set, there's always going to be some decision making, you know, because a lot of it boils down to a very specific human to human interaction, and you know, your own experience as a recruiter or as an account manager. You know, you can have all the guidelines laid out, but it really boils down to that very unique interaction and that decision upon that, right? Because each person is different. And so that kind of experience and leveraging that experience is not something that you can set a framework around. You just have to, I think that you just have to trust your people, that they, you know, and yeah, I mean, that's what I would say.
That's an interesting point you make. You make a point about trust. So because you now mentioned that you have about 85 people or 85, 90, give or take, in your organization.
Staff.
So basically, that's a big team, pretty large team that you kind of operate with. Yeah. So how do you manage do you have the empowerment right to the grassroots level, or it's more instruction based at the lower levels? How do you make sure that, because I'm assuming you want to extract maximum value from all your employees?
Yeah.
So how do you
I
address
think
that?
I think it's about aligning incentives, and like when you talk about incentives, it's about how do we succeed as a team as opposed to as individuals. So really thinking long and hard about how you do that, and we have a variety of different programs for to recognize an achievement, and like one of the things that we're doing is some of our top performers are actually coming to visit us in the US, some of it from that office, our overseas office. And so, putting together a lot of programs like that, I think helps to kind of, make a strong program. So, yeah.
What other challenges do you see with empowerment, Anup? What challenges do you see with?
It's the one you said. It's balancing, the goals of the organization and what you're trying to achieve with, giving people room to make their own decisions. You don't want to have a team of people just checking boxes, because at the end of the day, even though as a owner of a company, you might think that that's the most effective way, is telling people step by step every single decision they should make. It doesn't work that way, because there's so many different scenarios, and again, we're in a people to people environment, so you can't cover all the different scenarios. You have to trust your people, and you have to kind of give them that ability to make decisions. And so it's like you said, it's that balance between, creating process and allowing some room for autonomy.
So I do know that, based on my offline conversations, that you have experienced some growth and success, which I'm very happy for. Would you attribute it to more controls or to more empowerment? What would you attribute that to?
I would, so it's a combination. It's having good process, leveraging good tools and technologies, but process is only as good as it doesn't get in the way of work, right? So you don't want to have too much process, and you want to keep things as streamlined as possible. On the other hand, it is about building your team and trusting in your team, trusting in the leaders that run your team, and not micromanaging. Micromanaging, I think, is one of the biggest hindrances to growth. And what I always tell my team is, I personally think a lot of times the bottleneck to growth to any organization, and personally, I think for our organization, is internal rather than external. Because externally, there's so many opportunities, right? It's all about how do you set up your organization to, capture all that value out there.
Excellent. That's very interesting. When you think about it like that. So, what advice or suggestions would you give to someone probably grappling with this challenge of empowerment? Because many of us are trying to make empowerment a competitive advantage, right?
Yeah.
Because if you empower your team well, technically, dare to dream, you really don't need any supervision, right?
Yeah.
So that's the dare to dream category, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? What has been your learning in your journey as the president of Empower Professionals, in terms of what tips would you give us?
It's the old saying, trust but verify, right? So you want to trust in your team, but you want to put in certain process to make sure that things are going as expected. And I would say, I would say that's the big thing. I don't know. Let me think about that one more time. So what was the question?
What suggestions would you give to the audience about how do you make empowerment a competitive advantage to yourselves, where you are able to harvest and harness the power of empowerment in an organization?
So I would say, it's like I said, trust in your team, but verify. Make sure that you have some sort of standard to verify, what your team is doing. But, don't micromanage, and just hire good people, and then always be true to your word. That's one of the things that I make sure is that whether I'm speaking to my employees or to clients, if I say something, I'm going to back that up.
Excellent. And I think that's a cultural shift also, right? Many firms need to understand that it's a cultural shift, right, to the across the pecking order,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. It's important. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, but hey, thank you, Anup. Thank you so much. It's been a really exciting conversation and fun conversation with you. And as you know, this group is primarily for entrepreneurial leaders like yourselves.
Yeah.
And I hope to have you participate in future, shows and maybe even discussions that you plan to have in the future. So
yeah,
I wish you and Empower Professionals all the very best and wish you all success.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for participating. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me. All right.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, share, and subscribe to the EL Forum channel.